If you think your thoughts and opinions do not matter, or if you fear taking the next steps towards a better you, or if you allow other people to take free reign of your life, now is the time to put an end to these limiting beliefs. Welcome to Change Your View, a podcast that will help you take back control to have a well-lived life and the conviction that your life is to have meaning. Join Hasina Shahid Jackson in discussions aimed at overcoming the limitations of physical sight to see with spirit, hope, and faith. Each episode will empower you to develop the courage and self-assurance to go after the life you want. Here is your host, Hasina.
Well, hello, Darryl Daniels, and hello, my viewers today on Change Your View. I'm so excited to have someone here with me. And it's ironic. Me and Darryl have known each other, 20 plus years. But I don't look like I'm as old as Darryl. I know. You would never think I was that old. But that's just besides the point. But me and Darryl recently reconnected, and he has such a powerful story because a lot of times we can get stuck in thinking of one way. But I commend Darryl because he took a different path. He took a different path 20 years ago while I took the path that was, let's just say, the easy path for me. But now I've circumvented and I'm back to where Darryl is 20 years ago. I'm where he is today. So let me bring you on. Darryl is the owner of, and Darryl, tell us about your business.
Sure. The firm is Darryl Daniels Associates. We're based in Michigan. And as you said, you and I were connected, I'd say probably about 25 years ago, through our conference work with the Airport Minority Advisory Council, AMAC. Mm-hmm. And I really admired your leadership. I was new to the organization. You were already there. And you were such a leader and such a forceful leader. It was really exciting meeting you and others in the industry. And I was new to the industry. And I was able to, watch and admire you and many others take such a leadership role and learn a whole lot about airports and how airport businesses operate. The consulting side of the house, the operational side of the house, all of that. So I am glad we were able to reconnect and pick up again. So I appreciate, I can't remember, I reached out to you or you reached out to me, but anyway, I appreciate the
But I'm
connection.
glad that we did, right? The whole point is I'm glad that we did, and I'm glad we reconnected. So Darryl, actually, like he said, he worked with me as a consultant when I was a consultant, but then Darryl upped. And he just decided I'm leaving because he had this vision. And that's the whole part that I love about him is that he had a vision to be an entrepreneur instead of remaining. I think you were actually working in the airport at the time when I met you in New Orleans. Was that correct? Or
I was working for a firm. Okay. I was working for a smaller consulting firm. I'd say more like a regional firm where you're working for a national firm. Right. I was working for a smaller regional firm.
Thank you for the correction. But we were both in aviation. And Darryl just decided that I'm going to launch my own business. And I want to really start with that because he had a vision. And I want you to really explain to me what that vision was for you, Darryl, at the time. And what was the epiphany that just made you say, it's time, I'm going to do this?
So as I said, when we were working together with AMAC, and I could see other small businesses in the industry, and I had always had a dream of running my own business, from childhood. My degree is in architecture. I was going to be an architect. I was going to do all the stuff with architecture, so it was a matter of just how to put all that together to do my own thing. I was dreaming of that for years. But it wasn't until I got involved in aviation and airports that I could see a path, meaning I could see others in small businesses doing things and creating an opportunity for themselves and for others. And, sometimes, as they say, you have to see it to believe that you can be it. Well, I saw it. I saw it in other small businesses in the airport space. And the thing that really clicked for me is when I learned there was a business at the airport of just removing the rubber from the runway. And I'm saying,
What?
you mean there's just a company that just does that? They just remove the rubber from the runway? Yeah. So I start seeing other companies doing other little things in the airport. They was doing this and they were doing that. And they were doing something for the airlines. They were doing something for the rental cars. I was like, well, wow, there's this whole ecosystem out here where you can create a business and stay within the airport industry, stay within the airport space. And, that was exciting to me. And as I got more involved with AMAC, I met more folks from all over the country, from various cities and airports doing the same thing. And quite honestly, I said, listen, if they can do it, I can do it. I know I can do it.
I love that. So there's two things that you said that I like to highlight. One, you said, I can. Not if, but I can. And that's what's important. Because you had no doubt and you realized that you could tap into your potential and move forward.
Correct.
The other thing that you mentioned is the fact that networking and using I use the word networking as casting your net and making it work for you. And I see that's what you did. You used your connections to help build and create your business. And I want to ask you, because I know it's not as easy as that. So you cast your net, you met your friends, and I shouldn't say they were friends, but they were associates, people that you can probably do business with. How long did it really take you to earn that credibility to get that first client that says that really believed in you and what you could do?
Good question. And it did not take long. I want to go back to what you said about I can. That is important. And quite frankly, I didn't realize how important it was until you said it. But there was never any doubt, Hasina. There was never any doubt. And some of that was based upon my upbringing and my parents and family members, brothers, and so forth, people who had also had successfully done things. And just knowing like, I can do this. I can put the pieces together to make this work. It wasn't, I think I can, or maybe I can. It was, no, I can do this. And it was also me saying, listen, if this fails, and I don't believe it will, I can go do other things. So it wasn't like this, everything was in this one basket and I was done. I'm like, no, I can do this, but I can also do that. Okay. So that was it. That was really important. And then in terms of the network, that is critical. Having a reliable source of individuals who know what you can do, who believe in you, and who identify with the cause and your mission, that does take time to develop. There's no doubt about that. It takes time and it takes a lot of energy around relationships and developing those relationships, even when you don't need anything. I always say, it's the best time to develop a friend is when you really don't need a friend. It's just you're developing a business associate, a business relationship. And for me, I always felt it was important for me to give to them first. And that giving to them could be a simple, let me introduce you to Billy, who can help you in your business. I know this, I know that. So it was always about me giving first before I asked of them. And quite frankly, it really took a while for me to ask, just to write out ask. I would, kind of dance around it at times, but you really do have to be prepared to answer the question, because a lot of times they ask you, what can I do for you?
Yes. And you have to be prepared to have a response. You can't hem and haw.
Right. Correct.
There's one thing that you said that also stood out to me, and that was you kind of hinted at it, which I want to move forward to, is your motivators. What were the top motivators for you to really, I mean, you said that you saw other people and you saw what they were doing, like just the rubber, but that wasn't your motivator. What was your motivators that really showed you that you could be an entrepreneur, and how did those keep you moving forward? Because I know you had to face some challenges, which we'll get to next, but what was your motivators?
So I obviously I wanted some sense of independence around the work and to do the work that I wanted to do. But I really was more interested in advancing opportunities for others. I really wanted a firm, and I was able to convince my partner of this, where we were advancing opportunities for minorities and women in aviation, and really, and for the people who are allies to those folks. I saw in our industry a lack of minorities and women working in airports and airport contracting and aviation. And I really felt that that was something that I could do on a national scale and be impactful for people in their lives. So that was important to me. That really motivated me more than anything, because I'm sure I could have continued on in a consulting firm or become a CEO at an airport or some other position within government. But I wanted to create a space where people were free to be themselves and free to explore their passions within our firm, and but also just create a firm where folks had real opportunity.
And that's what I think is the key to success to me. It's not once did you say anything about the financial return that you saw. It's really about serving others. And once you have what you're trying to do is not for selfish gain, the rest will follow, which I want you to talk about. So let's move forward now. You started out, it was 2-man show, you and Brad, and tell Brad, I'd like to see, maybe one day we'll have a reunion. So Brad is his partner for those we haven't, and Brad, we all were connected. You started off with 2. When did you start picking on more employees? So how long did it take you to have that uptick?
Good question. We were just laughing about this the other day, how we were in, I think his basement or my basement, when we were getting ready to start the firm. And I said, my vision is in 5 years is for us to be 10 employees and make X amount of dollars, X amount of clients, all of the kind of fantasy that you do when you're doing a business plan and all that. We had no contracts. We had no clients. We had really nothing. And we're going through the same process now. And I was telling my staff, guys, it was a fantasy then. Now we have 200 employees. We got contracts all over the country. We work for everybody. So it's no longer a fantasy. When we go through this strategy process now, we're doing it based upon some real stuff and stuff that really matters. So it was really that opportunity that allowed me to understand I really am a visionary. I'm someone who can, connect the dots and see things. And Brad he's the person who executes. He takes that vision and then he executes. So it was really the perfect partnership of someone who can dream and then someone who can actually make stuff happen. I can make some things happen.
But I love what you just said, because that's what it takes to really make the dream work, the vision.
Right.
Both of you guys couldn't have been visionaries, because then you would have hypothesized to death.
Exactly. We'd be dreaming all day.
You would have been, well, we could do this pie this way, or we could take this piece over here, and you would never have gotten anything done. So it goes back that you have to have, and Pat Lencioni actually talks about this in The Working Genius, is that you have to have people within your team that complement each other. And you and Brad had that. You were the visionary. However, he was the executor, and because he was able to implement, and you always have to have an implementer, because
you do.
That's the key. If they're
Right.
both in the same realm, then it will stagnate and it would have
Right.
fizzed out. And I'm
Right.
sure as you've moved on, you've continued to add people to your team to complement in the different areas, because you can't
Absolutely.
have all the same thinkers. You have to have people who have different,
Right.
working geniuses.
That's true. That's true. And you have to recognize that in your personalities, in your disciplines, all of that, because that's really where all that's kind of gets kind of mentored and nurtured and yeah, it was the perfect partnership in that sense.
I love it. I love it. So tell me, because now you mentioned that you were in your basement. You had the
Right.
dream of 10 employees. Did that dream, so did it happen in 5 years? When did you reach the 10 employees, and what did it take to get to the 10 employees?
It's amazing how it really did happen. It happened, quite frankly, even before the 5 years. Um, I the first 5 to 10 years was a bit of a grind. I will say it because you are creating something out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember even answering the phone saying Jacobson Daniels, like what is that? People like it's just something totally new. But you got to do it. You got to push through the fact that you are this entity now, and you want people to recognize the entity, not just the personalities, but the entity. So we spent a lot of time trying to create an entity that was branded around us, and soon people thought we were much bigger than we were. They actually still do to some degree, but it was a slow grind. 3 people, 5 people, 10, 15. It really didn't accelerate until we got to around 50, and then it started to jump. 75, 100, 150. It started to really just to grow the momentum. But it does take, and you have to appreciate the grind of creating it and all the systems that are needed to make it function. When you walk into a firm that's already there, it feels like they have all that stuff already figured out. But here we were figuring it out as we go. And that was tough, buying furniture, buying, paper and all the office, all the stuff that you have to do it all.
So you another key point that you just brought up now, because I love that, because a lot of times we can get stuck in working in the business till we don't work on the business to make it grow. So
Correct.
how did you have that balance? Because like you said, you answered the phone sometimes saying Jacobson Daniels, you were buying the paper, you were in the weeds. How did you finally get out of the weeds and just say, I have to be the visionary if I want to continue growing this? If I stay here doing these things, then I will not be able to make it grow. So how did you figure that out to move forward?
You have to be committed to adding talent and then just getting other people in the right seats, in the firm. Because otherwise you will always, particularly in consulting, you'll always be the one that the client calls
Mm-hmm.
to do the work. So you have to do the work, and then you got to go back and work on the business. You have to do all of this stuff. So you really, over time, just have to get the right talent to free you away from the daily organizational stuff on the ground. So I'll say one of the best hires was an administrative assistant. Just somebody, to like help keep things, and help keep things in order. And you never appreciate that hire until you get it. Because when you get the right person there, now you've got someone to assist and to help bring order to what really is chaos. It really is chaos
Mm-hmm.
those first few years as you're trying to figure 401k and this and the finances and the P&L and the balance sheet and this. And, you're learning all stuff with the documents and the contracts. I was the lawyer, for the firm for the first few years because I couldn't afford a lawyer. So you go through all this stuff, and Brad and I were on the phone. We were working in the office every day, and then we were on the phone together every night. every night we were talking about this, that, this, how you do this, what do you do? It was just consuming. It was all consuming.
So one thing I want to ask you about, because you mentioned and you alluded to it about the fact that you didn't have a lot of money. So how? Because I think a lot of times we get stuck on the lack of resources and we don't bring the personnel on because we want to wait until we get that big contract or we know that we have the money in our hand. So what made you take that gamble? Because I'm sure you didn't probably have the money every time you brought on someone. So how did you put yourself forward to just say, I'm going to step out here? Because a lot of times we stop ourselves from stepping forward because of the lack.
Yeah, you do. What we did is first secured a line of credit. And you do that, and at least in our case, we did it by first just your own personal signature, but you only get so much money that way. But then you got to put up your house. You got to put up all this stuff. And you just got to be prepared to do all of that because you do need the security of the line of credit to hire folks and to keep payroll going every week. While those contracts are in place and while you start generating money from those contracts, because as you know, when you invoice, it could take you, 90 days before you see $1. So that is a balancing act, getting the contracts, getting the people. But I got to tell you, the harder part about it is getting the people because no one really believes you're going to succeed that first year. Or year 2 or year 3. It really takes about 5 years before people start to think, okay, well, I think these guys are going to make it. I'm willing to join them. I'm willing to leave my safe security firm over here to come join that. That takes a minute. Unless there's someone who's really very close to you, it really does take a minute for people to realize, okay, this is going to be successful. I'm willing to join them.
And so the talent. So that I was going to say, so it sounds like that was one of your challenges, because I was going to ask, what was 2 of your biggest challenges? And it sounds like talent was one. So because you had that challenge with talent, what was your workaround? What did you see as your way forward? Since if you had someone that says, well, I have this 6-figure job here, but you want me to come work with you and take this gamble. So how did you cross that bridge? How did you help them to really buy into your vision? Because that's what a visionary leader is. They had to buy into your vision.
Yeah. So that's where they like to say, I got them to drink the Kool-Aid. So, people need to hear you talk, believe you, but they need to see things. They need to see it in writing. They need, clients or potential clients willing to talk to them, to provide them some security around, this is going to happen. So for me, it was combining all those things, and packaging all those things and then selling it. You really are selling it to those folks who you want to come join you in this effort. And it is a bit of a song and dance, but it is putting together and packaging all those things in a way that people will believe you. And some people did not. I'll admit, I think some people were afraid, early on, or I didn't do a good enough job selling it to them, or they had their own security issues. But it didn't work all the time, and that's okay. And I think some have looked back and regretted it. Some have also looked back and joined us later. Like it wasn't the right time for them then, but they came and they joined us later. But I got to tell you, there have been quite a few who said, I really wish you guys had tapped me on those early days. Yeah, it's
really,
but you just never know. You never know.
So there's a few that you didn't tap that they wish that you would have tapped to come into to be part of the team.
Right.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It is.
You said a couple of things that I really would like to expand upon, because it really sparked a thought with me. And it goes back to the face of the company. When you were speaking about that, you have to learn how to let the reins go, because if you are the one that's always out there, and I remember the hat when I was a consultant too, and it really struck a memory, because I remember back at the time, my vice president, he always was the one who took the lead in meetings. So when that was time for me to go into a meeting, they would go, well, no, where is Bill? And I changed his name because, we're on it. They would be like, well, where is Bill? I know Bill, but you, I don't know. And I was like, well, but I'm here. And I was the one who crunched the numbers. So I can actually tell you what's in the numbers versus him coming in because you are tied the work in with someone who's not doing the work, when they should really let the person who's doing the work take the lead. And that was really kind of disheartening to me. And it can hurt your self-esteem and self-confidence to hear that they don't want to hear from you. They rather hear from the face that they know. And I think that's something that people need to understand, is that figurehead that you see is not the worker bee. It's really the other person who's sitting in the meeting, and you should allow them the opportunity to speak. And that's what I would like for us to see as leaders, is that we need to change our view and our perspective. It's not about me, because you mentioned it earlier. You are serving. You first give a hand before you ask for a hand. And where did you learn that from? Because that's really key. You have to first give a hand before you ask for a hand. How did that get instilled in you, Darryl?
Yeah, I had an uncle who was a mentor, and we spent a great deal of time talking about how to be successful in business. And he wasn't even in business. He was a counselor at a university. But a lot of his stuff was transactional.
Okay.
And so he talked a lot about how you give, not with the expectation of something coming back to you, but with the expectation of really helping someone else have a better situation, better life, a better where it is, and feeling a lot of satisfaction in that. When I translate that to business, I realize that people are more open to talking and listening to you if they feel that you have invested in them some way. And it's such a simple thing to do. I'll tell you this example. I was the chair of AMAC board for a few years. And when we have a luncheon, a room full of, let's say, 1,000 people, I would take it upon myself to go around the room, table to table to table. Sometimes I would offer to get their drinks or offer to get their food. I'm just like, listen, I might be chair of the board, but I really want to be servant to you guys. This is a membership organization. Mm-hmm. I'm wanting you to see that I'm here to serve you. Mm-hmm. The money that you have done, you've invested in this organization. So I would go from table to table talking to people and asking them, who would you like to meet? Mm-hmm. You're at this conference. Who at this conference would you like me to introduce you to? And they would say, oh, so-and-so. I said, well, get up. I know he's right over here. I'm going to take you right now.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
So. And I would do that and that was so exciting for me, because I know they come there, or they should come anyway, with a business plan or a marketing plan or some plan to network and meet people. And that's such an easy thing to do. Who can I introduce you to that would help you in your business?
And I love what you just said, because in networking, and it's not to go out to meet people to see what you can get from them, but I would say, if you know you're going to an event, at least find 3 people that you know you would like to meet. Don't look for the people that you know. Instead, try to find someone that you don't know. And then don't ask the question of, well, what's your name? And what do you do? Ask something that lets them know that you really want to get to know them below the surface. Like, what was most interesting to you about your day-to-day? Or what was the challenge that you faced? Because then that person's they're going to perk up, because they're like, oh, this person really wants to get to know who I am. They're not
Right.
asking me what my name is and what my business is, because those things are equating to that person that you're really making a connection to see what you want instead of
Right.
to see who they are.
Right. Exactly.
Yes. And I love that. I love that because we have to understand that it's not about me, it's about them. You have to be selfless and not selfish. And because that is the key to success to me. And
Right.
to me, success is not about amassing a fortune, but it's really about the souls that you touch and the lives that you change. And I love what you said at the beginning of our talk. You started your business because you wanted to help people get into living in their passion, pursuing their gifts, and using those talents,
Right.
creating an environment that was not available somewhere else.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's, when I used to go to church, I mean, I still go to church, but when I was, at a church, remember, I wanted to be someplace where I felt comfortable. You have
Right.
to be someplace where you felt comfortable and engaged and involved and where folks can identify with you. So it's the same with a firm or a business. You want to be someplace where you're engaged and involved and included, in terms of every aspect of the business. And that's really what we wanted to create. And I think we've done so successfully. It doesn't work for everyone. And sometimes you do have to make business decisions that are tough at times. But, ultimately, you want to create that kind of environment for your people.
And let's fast forward because I have two more questions I want to ask before we
Okay, sure.
close out. And I'm sure there might be some more, but one of the things I want to talk about, because at the beginning of our talk, we talked about work-life balance and finding those boundaries for what I want to say is because when you initially started, the boundaries were you had to be all into this business, giving it 100% of your time. And I'm sure there was some things, and I never really talked if you were married or had kids or whatever, but I'm sure that in your personal life, there were some things where your spouse or if you were married to him had to say, well, Dad, when we going to have some time together? But they had to really bear with you during that season because they had to buy into your vision and believe in you. So how did you find that balance when you were in the trenches? And then we're going to move forward to where you are today, though.
Sure. There is absolutely no balance in the beginning. You are all in and it consumes you every day of the year and almost every minute because you're all in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is how you survive. I think of it almost like an animal out in the woods. You're just out there trying to survive day to day. You're trying to feed yourself. You're trying to live. Not be killed by some other animal. You're always. That's how this is.
Right.
That's why it's so different than owning a business. Is different than a job, where you just
Mm-hmm.
go to a job and then you go home and then you can go to the gym and do all that kind of stuff. You don't when you own a business and then when it's just you, there's a little less risk. But when you start getting other folks in, now you're taking on the responsibility of all the folks in the firm and their lives. Yeah, for them it's a job, but they got a job, they have a family, they have a house, and so you're part of securing all of that for them. I remember when one of the first employees getting ready to buy a house, like, ooh, do you want to buy a house? It was.
You was like, you were like, don't use this company as your security for your income.
I know. You putting more pressure on me now. I gotta really go out here. I gotta keep doing this. I gotta support my house and all this. And I gotta support your house. And that's really what it is. We gotta keep the money coming in all the time to support everybody. So there's no balance in the beginning. You look for, in my case, I was looking for an opportunity to not find balance, but to find integration. And that's what worked for me. And that's why I don't say work-life balance anymore. So I say work-life integration.
I like that.
How do you
So
How
what
do
does
you
that
integrate
mean? So
these
what does
things?
that look like? So what is integration to you? I love that. And I might have to steal that term because I really do like that better than because I use boundaries really, but I like the integration. So tell me what integration means.
What that looks like to me, particularly on a typical day, is I am working from home, and I may work for an hour or two doing something, and then I'm going to go out in the garden for an hour, or I may work longer days, but I am integrating everything I can into the day. Or if I am on a business trip, I'm going to integrate some kind of social or family activity as part of that business trip. Or if I'm on vacation, I have negotiated with my spouse that, listen, I'm on vacation, but if I need to work, I'm going to work. I'll go play here, but I'm also going to work. And let's just all agree that we can play and work, at the same time. So because it really wasn't working, Hasina, going on a vacation for a week and then just worrying about the job or the business, or where you just, trying to say, I'm going to turn my laptop off, I'm going to turn my phone off, I'm going to do all this stuff. You just worry. You're just worrying the whole time. At least I was worrying the whole time, like, okay, what's happening? Did that contract come through? So I decided, you know what? Just stop all that. Just check in. Sometimes I would just read emails, but don't respond. But just read them, just see what's going on. And so I've sort of figured out how to integrate all this stuff, and not feel the pressure of not wanting to go on vacation, or the pressure of uh, just not being comfortable on vacation. Because if I can read through some emails and not respond, then I know what's going on. I know everything is fine. I mean, I know everything's gonna be fine anyway. It'll go on without me. But I'm just, it's just my personality, always wanting to know what's happening.
Well, there's two things that you said there I like to highlight. One is you had a conversation and you reached a compromise with your spouse on, look, let's just agree that yes, we're on vacation, but give me some grace to know that I have to go check my emails to just make sure everything is okay. And the spouse has to, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to use the word have, but I would hope that they could compromise and say, okay, do that. Because if you don't, I can see you're going to sit here at this table or at the pool, and the whole time your face is going to be like, you know. So the point is that, and I can appreciate that. Go and take that hour, or maybe in the morning before we go out, or whatever it is.
Correct.
Check it. But then once we go on our excursion or whatever, you have to leave it behind. So,
Exactly.
And so the other thing is, which is what I was just mentioning, is that, okay, after you get that hour or 2 hours max, whatever it is, then you get totally immersed in replenishing and refreshing your spirit so that you can then go back to do the work that you need to do to grow your business.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. You find a way to immerse yourself and be present in whatever that you're doing then. And you can do that because now you've kind of freed yourself. You know what's going on. I suppose there's some risk of, you might read an email and be like, ugh, and then you really got to like deal with it. But, there are folks who can deal with stuff. Now there are folks who can actually deal with stuff. And even if you have to say, go deal with this, that's somebody who can deal with it. But I will say, I prefer vacationing when the time zone is 8 to 12 hours difference, because now you can really just deal with emails when they're all sleeping. And then you can at least read the emails, and then you can be free to do what you need to do, with later when they're, so that time difference helps to know that they're not working and you're playing, or they're working and you're still playing, but you're sleeping, whatever it is.
So you find ways to work the system so that you're not, like, if you go from, because you're in the central, no, you're in the Eastern time zone. So you would go into the central time zone would not work for you because you're on the same time. But let's say if you were to go to, Australia or something like that, it would, on the other side, it would be more beneficial because then that you could not get back immersed into work because other people are sleeping and they're not going to respond.
Exactly. They're not going to respond.
So you have to find ways to trick yourself too, to really take that break. Sounds like what you're saying.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Trick yourself.
Yes. So let me ask you this, because when we first connected, you said this to me, and I could get it because it's not easy being an entrepreneur and starting out. But now you were more than you actually have a firm of 200 people, which I applaud you. You said, but Hasina, if I had to do this all over again, I wouldn't. And I looked. And you laughed, and I laughed too. And I said, well, we have to talk about that more because we had to jump off the phone. So I want you to actually talk about that a little bit here now. What do you mean by that? And would you really think about what you have there? I mean, I know the pressure and stress of owning your own business is not easy, but what you said at the beginning of our discussion was having the freedom and flexibility where you didn't have to be held accountable to the higher ups, but you are held accountable to the people that work for you. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is that you didn't have to be tied to a phone because your boss called you to say, hey, you need you to work this weekend to do something. You really were the boss. So explain to me what you meant by when you said, if I had to do this all over again, I wouldn't.
Well, it's really quite simple. It's just that it's scary. And you don't know how frightening it is until you're in it. You look from afar, as I told you, as I was going to AMAC and other conferences, and I would see other businesses, and it seemed glamorous. There's a kind of glamorous feel of seeing executives walking in and on the corridor and doing all this stuff and socializing and dinner, and it just seems like, oh, it'd be so great to do all that, and it doesn't seem. You don't see the drama and the energy and passion that they have had to go through to be where they are. So when I say that, looking back, if I knew, but I think it's sort of true of a lot of different things. If you knew what it took to get through all of that, you'd be like, I don't want that. I don't want to do that. Like it's like a roller coaster. You look at a roller coaster and go, wee, 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 and everybody like having fun. But when you actually do it,
right.
If I knew how that felt, before, I never would have gotten that roller coaster, which I don't go on roller coaster. Because I know now. So my point is, with the business, I just did not fully understand what it meant when you sign your name on the front of the check. And all the responsibilities, all that it takes, all consuming it is, to keep the machine fed and going. I just don't believe there's any way I would have signed up for that, because it was just way too much work. I also told you it was the best decision I ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so I realize that might seem contradictory. It was the best decision I ever made. It gave me a full life and the quality of life that I desired and dreamed. I just didn't know that you had to go through all of what you have to go through to get it here. It wasn't like a family business that was handed to me. It was creating something out of nothing.
Mhm.
So that's the tough part.
But, and I go back to my whole premise is to change your view, but it's not to see with the physical eyes. It's really to see with the spirit. So you started off with a vision, and your vision was where you are probably today.
Correct.
So, but to get to that, you have to continue seeing with that spirit, even though the physical things that become before you are those obstacles and those challenges, but you have to keep your eye, and I say the invisible eye, on the outcome that you really desire, to keep pressing ahead. And that's what you did. And that's why you said it's the best decision that you ever made, because I see it as you were focusing on your vision.
Correct.
But your physical eyes was seeing all the things that you had to go through to get to where you wanted to be.
Absolutely.
But the point is that you took the steps and was persistent and consistent and committed to getting to what you could see with your invisible eye.
Correct. That's true.
See, and that's what I want people to understand. We have to be willing to go for what we cannot see with our physical eyes, to instead believe in what can be with that we see within. Because if you stay stuck on your environment, and I'm sure you had naysayers who said, I can't believe you're doing this. Are you out of your mind? But you have to follow those motivators that you had. You have to follow those motivators. And those motivators was really your driving force, because you were helping others to become what they wanted to be, because they had no other avenue at the time. And I say this is that that's what we have to be willing to do, is break those barriers, remove those limiting beliefs, and go outside our cultural barriers that we do have that try to keep us limited. So if there's one final thought you'd like to leave our viewers with, what would it be? What would you like to leave them with?
Don't limit yourself. Look for opportunities where you can connect your network, your resources, and your passion to do the work that you want to do, to have the freedom, the life, the opportunities. You create opportunities for yourself. And I share that with my team all the time. Don't look for me to give you work to do. Create the opportunity for yourself. Learn how to create it for yourself. And it will be freeing and really far more exciting for you when you do that.
Okay. I like that. I like that. So we have to, instead of looking for a handout, go grab and seize what you want.
Create it for yourself.
Yes. All right. Well, I thank you for your time today, Darryl. And this has been a wonderful conversation. It's been so enlightening. And I pray that others will get the fruit and apply it to their life and move forward to do the things that they want to do in their life.
Thank you.
Not be limited. So I thank you for this conversation.
You're welcome.
I'm sure I will have you back on again.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. You do too.
This concludes this episode of Change Your View. Let this conversation help you navigate life's challenges, emerging from that seemingly endless pause that you are experiencing. Regain command of your own path and resist being boxed in. Visit hsjackson.com for more inspiring and eye-opening discussions. Stop walking in the shadows of other individuals. No longer allow inferior perspectives to brainwash you. Do not be forgotten. You have the authority and power over you. Make the most of your abilities. Thank you for listening. Until next time.